They said I embarrassed them, that I didn't carry the family name with pride. So when the reunion invitation arrived, it came with a warning. Please don't come. You've done enough damage. I didn't argue. I just waited until the moment everyone gathered in front of the family estate, laughing, sipping champagne, posing for photos. And then the real owner arrived. Me. And the silence? It was worth every wound they ever left unspoken. My name is Luciana Reyes, and I've spent most of my life trying to shrink myself into something more digestible, more acceptable for a family who never truly saw me. To them, I was always too much of something. Too loud. Too opinionated. Too artsy. Too different. I didn't go to law school like my brother. I didn't marry into wealth like my cousin. I didn't wear pearls or straighten my curls or pretend to be someone I wasn't. And for that, I was a disgrace. A disappointment. A story they never like to tell at dinner parties. But the thing about being pushed to the edges is sometimes you learn to build an entirely new world from the outside. And that's exactly what I did. So when they told me not to come to the reunion, I smiled. Because I already had the keys to the place they were gathering. And they had no idea. The message came on a Monday. Crisp, polite, like all their words were, wrapped in sugar but meant to sting. Luciana, after much discussion, we think it's best if you skip the reunion this year. It's just been such a difficult time with the incident at the gallery. We hope you understand. Love, Mom and Dad. The incident at the gallery. That's what they were calling it now. Not your daughter's breakout exhibit that went viral for exposing generational control and elitism in upper-class Latino families. No. To them, it was an embarrassment. A scandal. Never mind that the write-up in Vogue Mexico called it a searing, beautiful reclamation of cultural and emotional identity. To my parents, it was shame. Because shame in their world was anything that told the truth a little too loudly. Especially if it was a woman speaking. Especially if it was me. I didn't respond to the message. What was there to say? That I had understood? Oh, I understood perfectly. I understood that I was only invited when I was quiet. When I smiled and posed for family photos and wore beige. When I didn't bring my girlfriend. When I pretended I was still trying to find a real job. They always said I had potential. But what they meant was, you could be lovable if you weren't so much yourself. The gallery show had been the breaking point. A raw, autobiographical collection of paintings and digital portraits capturing my life in contrast to my family's curated perfection. There was one piece in particular, titled Sunday Dinner, that depicted a long table full of faceless silhouettes passing judgment on a girl whose dress was burning at the seams. People cried in front of it. Some called it revolutionary. But my mother? She called it ungrateful. And my father? He didn't say anything at all. Just quietly cut the monthly check they'd been sending to help me get on my feet. I didn't ask for it. They gave it anyway, to feel superior. To say we made you. But here's what they didn't know. Right before the gallery show, I sold a series of custom digital portraits to a private collector in Spain. One of them went viral. It turned into a licensing deal. Then a brand collaboration. And then a check. The kind of check that changes the way you breathe. I didn't post about it. Didn't tell anyone. Didn't call them to say, hey, the disappointment of the family just bought a 9-bedroom estate outside Sonoma. Because I wasn't doing it to prove them wrong. I was doing it to prove me right. And because sometimes the best kind of healing is the kind no one sees coming. A week before the reunion, I got a call from my cousin Anna. She was always the kind one. The soft link between me and the rest of the family. I know what they said, she whispered. But it's not right. Everyone's asking about you. People liked your art, Lucy. I did too. I'm fine, I said gently. I don't need to be there. She hesitated. Well, the venue changed, just so you know. We're doing it at some estate north of town. Mom said they got a crazy deal on it. Weird, right? My stomach turned. Did she say which estate? No, just a really gorgeous one. Apparently, the owner's never around. Some art person. I smiled. Oh, Anna. Oh,
Mama.
Oh, everyone. They were about to party on my front lawn. I didn't say anything. Didn't warn them. Didn't cancel. I just waited. And the morning of the reunion, I got dressed in my favorite soft navy jumpsuit, twisted my curls up into a loose bun, slipped on gold earrings shaped like flames, and walked outside. The estate was already buzzing with caterers.
Tables set up.
Wine chilling. A string quartet warming up under the pergola. They had no idea the woman walking across the gravel was the one who signed their contract. I passed the event planner, Carla, whom I'd hired last month, and gave her a little nod. "You good?" she whispered. "Perfect," I said. Because I wasn't crashing the reunion. I was hosting it. It wasn't until guests started arriving that the energy shifted. A slow ripple of discomfort. First from my mother, spotting me from across the fountain. Her mouth opened, then snapped shut. My father blinked twice like I was a ghost. My aunt whispered something too loudly. But I stayed calm, smiled, lifted a glass of sparkling water and toasted Anna from across the courtyard. Then came the moment. My brother, ever the diplomat, walked over and tried to joke. "Luciana, you're here. Brave." I tilted my head. "You mean, since I was specifically uninvited?" He flushed. "I didn't mean, Mom, just—" "I know what she meant," I said. "And I'm not here to argue." He blinked. "Then why are you here?" I reached into my bag, pulled out the keys, held them up. "Because this," I said softly, "is my house." He stared. "What?" "I bought this estate 6 months ago. The paperwork's in my name. Every bush, every window, every tile." He looked around, stunned. "They rented this place without knowing?" He asked. "Oh, they knew the owner was an artist," I said. "They just didn't bother to ask who." And then I walked away. Not with malice. Not to hurt them. But because I had nothing left to prove. I wasn't a disappointment. I wasn't a phase. I was a woman who had built a life with no blueprint. And they were just guests in it now. The shock didn't hit all at once. It was like a slow-moving wave. First disbelief, then whispers, then the frantic flutter of relatives huddling in corners with wine glasses, glancing nervously toward me like I had become a fire they were unsure whether to worship or flee. The quartet kept playing something classical and elegant. My house glowed in the golden light of the afternoon. And for the first time in my entire life, I stood among my family without flinching. Because this time, I had nothing to explain. I wasn't the artist they barely tolerated. I wasn't the phase or the black sheep or the one who never fit. I was the woman who owned the land beneath their feet. And that truth, quiet, simple, undeniable, was rearranging every face in the courtyard. "Luciana," my mother said, approaching me finally, her voice trembling with restraint. "Can I speak to you for a moment? Alone?" She was smiling, that tight, practiced smile that had shamed me into silence all my life. But not anymore. "Of course," I said calmly. "This way." I led her into the sunroom, overlooking the vineyard hills. A breeze moved through the gauzy curtains. She stood stiffly, arms crossed, still trying to control the moment. How did this happen?" she asked, trying to keep her voice even. "The house? The money?" I didn't answer immediately. I let the silence stretch. Let her sit in the discomfort of not knowing every part of me anymore. "I sold my work," I said finally. "Licensed some pieces.
Took the money.
Bought this place." "But why wouldn't you tell us?" she asked. "Why keep it a secret?" I looked at her, straight in the eyes. "Because you only care when I shrink," I said. "You never asked about my work unless it embarrassed you. You never supported me unless I was failing. The moment I succeeded, on my terms, you treated it like betrayal." "That's not true," she whispered, but her voice wavered. "It is," I said gently, "and you know it." She sat down slowly, as if the truth physically weakened her. "You always made me feel like I had to earn love in this family. Like I had to perform a version of myself that made you proud, even if it killed who I really was." "I was trying to protect you," she said. "The world is cruel. I thought if you fit in, if you played by the rules, then I wouldn't embarrass you, I finished for her. But I don't live to be palatable, Mama. I live to be free. Tears welled up in her eyes, but she didn't cry. My mother didn't cry. She just blinked slowly and nodded. I suppose we didn't see you coming. I wasn't hiding, I said. You just weren't looking. The door creaked open. My father stepped in, quiet and cautious. He looked older than I remembered. Or maybe just smaller.
Luciana, he said.
I just wanted to say, we're proud of you. I stared at him. It was the first time I'd heard those words in over a decade. And still, they didn't feel like enough. But I nodded. I didn't do this to spite you, I said. I did it to survive you. His shoulders dropped. I know, he said. And somehow, that was more honest than anything he'd said in years. Outside, laughter erupted. My cousin Anna was telling a story. My girlfriend Gabriella had arrived and was handing out glasses of hibiscus sangria from the bar I'd installed near the orchard. Life was happening. And for once, I wasn't watching it from the sidelines. I rejoined the party. And the strangest thing happened. People didn't turn away. They turned toward me. An uncle clapped me on the back. An aunt whispered that she always thought I had fire in me. My younger cousin asked if she could intern at my studio. It was surreal. Not because they finally saw me,
but because I no longer needed them to.
That night, after the last guest left and the string lights flickered in the wind, Gabriella found me sitting by the olive trees in the backyard. She sat beside me, silent for a moment. Then she said, "You are magnificent today." I laughed softly. I didn't say much. "You didn't have to," she replied. "You were the story." We sat there, hand in hand, looking at the home I built with the pieces of a self they tried to break. And I realized I didn't want revenge. I didn't want to humiliate them. All I ever wanted was to be seen. And now I didn't need their eyes to see me. I had my own reflection. And she was whole. The morning after the reunion, the house felt different. Still beautiful. Still filled with the light that danced through the lavender curtains. But heavier somehow, like the air hadn't cleared from all the things we didn't say. My parents left before dawn. Not a note. Not a goodbye. Just silence. And honestly, I expected that. Because people like them, people who wrap their love in conditions and seal their pride with silence, they rarely linger in rooms where they're not in control. Still, it stung. No matter how strong you become, there's always a part of you that aches when your parents walk away from your truth. I poured myself a cup of coffee and wandered barefoot through the garden, letting the warm dirt ground me again. Gabriella joined me minutes later, her curly hair still messy from sleep, one of my old paint-stained hoodies draped over her shoulders. "You didn't sleep," she said gently. I shook my head. "Did they say anything before leaving?" She took a breath. "Your mom hugged Anna. Avoided me. Your dad asked Carla where the driveway exit was. That's it." I nodded, unsurprised. I hesitated. I don't understand how people can love you and still be so ashamed of who you are. Gabriella's expression softened. "Because they never learned to separate love from control," she said. "They think they're the same thing." That thought followed me all week. Every time I walked into my studio, every time I opened an email from a new client, every time another gallery reached out for a commission, I was building this incredible life. But inside, a part of me still felt like the little girl in church shoes, trying not to speak too loudly, trying not to color outside the lines. Because that's what they taught me. Not through words, but through the absence of them. One evening, Anna came by with a bottle of wine and 2 tubs of her famous arroz con leche. We sat on the back deck as the sun sank behind the hills, and for a moment, it felt like childhood again, only softer. "I'm sorry about how they treated you," she said. "It's not fair. It's never been fair." "You don't have to apologize for them," I said. "I know. But someone should say it. Someone should say you didn't deserve that." My throat tightened. Because that was it. I didn't want an apology. I just wanted acknowledgement. I just wanted anyone to say, "You were never too much. You were just surrounded by people too afraid to be full. Anna pulled out an envelope from her bag and handed it to me. What's this? I found it in Abuela's things. I think she meant for you to have it. My chest clenched.
Abuela.
The only person in our family who had ever really seen me. The only one who snuck me paints and sketchbooks when I was a kid, who whispered, "Don't let them tame you, Mija." She died 5 years ago. The day I lost her, I lost my compass. I opened the envelope slowly. Inside was a letter. Handwritten. Faded. Lucianita. If they ever forget who you are, remember this. You are the echo of every brave woman who chose truth over comfort. Your art is not rebellion. It is remembrance. I see you. I'm proud of you. And one day they will be too. But even if they're not, keep painting. To Abuela. Tears slipped down my cheeks before I could stop them. Anna placed her hand over mine. She always believed in you. And I believed in her. I whispered. She was the only one who didn't try to mold me. Anna tilted her head. You know she wanted you to have the house, right?
She talked about it before she passed.
Said, Luciana deserves a place where she's not just tolerated, but celebrated. I nodded. I think that's why I bought it, I said. Not just for me. For her. For everything she wanted for me. The next day, I walked into the sunroom and pulled out a canvas. It had been months since I painted something for myself. Not for a client. Not for a gallery.
Just me.
I painted the house. I painted Abuela's silhouette in the window. I painted lavender blooming from the porch. And in the center of it all, I painted a girl with a brush in her hand and fire in her chest. I called it inheritance. Because that's what this truly was. Not land, not title, but truth. The piece went viral. Again. And when the article hit the front page of Arte Latina, my mother's best friend texted her. Your daughter is the heart of a generation. How lucky you must feel. I don't know if she ever replied. But a week later, I received a package on my doorstep. No note. No return address. Just a photo album. Inside were photos from my childhood I'd never seen before. Me finger painting on the kitchen floor. Me covered in glitter with Abuela beaming beside me. Me holding a handmade Mother's Day card that I apparently crafted at 5, signed in big shaky letters. To Mama from your artist. I closed the album. And for the first time in a long, long while, I let myself grieve. Not for who they were, but for the love I should have received. The pride they should have offered. The embrace that never came. The applause that always went to someone else. And in that grief, I found something unexpected.
Peace.
Because healing doesn't always come wrapped in apology. Sometimes, it's a silent photo album left on your doorstep. Sometimes, it's a letter from a woman who's no longer here. Sometimes, it's painting your story until the shame is no longer yours to carry. And in that silence, I began to reclaim everything they tried to erase. My voice, my story, my name. It's strange how the quietest moments can be the ones that echo the loudest. You think the fireworks of betrayal, the slammed doors, the angry words, would leave the deepest scars. But no. The loudest hurt I ever carried was the quiet. The non-answers. The dinners where they passed me the rice but not the conversation. The proud speeches about my brother's law degree while my art exhibitions went unmentioned. The silence after the reunion was familiar. Expected. A return to status quo. But something in me had shifted. I didn't crave their recognition anymore. I craved something else.
Truth.
Legacy. A life that didn't need their permission. After I painted Inheritance, something changed in my audience. People didn't just buy prints anymore, they wrote letters. Long ones. From women mostly. One from a woman in San Antonio who left a controlling marriage after seeing my piece. One from a girl in Bogota who hid her sketchbooks under her bed until she saw my story. One from a woman named Elena who wrote, I've spent 60 years trying to earn my mother's love. Maybe it's time to just start loving myself. That one made me cry. Because that's what I had been doing too, chasing scraps of affection from people who couldn't love me without conditions. A few weeks later, my Aunt Isabel called. The same one who once whispered to my mom, "Maybe she's just confused." I almost didn't answer, but something in me said, "Let's see what this is."
"Luciana," she said.
I saw the painting, the one of the house. It made me cry. I waited. "You know, your abuela once painted a version of that same view," she continued. "But she never showed anyone. Said no one in the family would understand." "I would have understood," I said quietly. "I know," she whispered. "I think that's why she wanted you to have the house." A pause. Then, "I was wrong about you. I thought you were trying to rebel, but you were trying to heal, and I didn't know how to witness that." That admission floored me, not because it fixed anything, but because it was the first time someone from my family didn't meet my truth with silence. And maybe that was a kind of beginning. Gabriella and I decided to host a community art day at the estate. Not for the press, not for business, just to open the gates to something bigger than me. Children came with their grandparents. Mothers brought daughters. Retirees dusted off old sketchbooks. We painted together on the lawn, filled canvases with bold, wild colors no one apologized for. There were no rules, no expectations, no fear, just joy. And in the middle of it all, a teenage girl named Marisol came up to me and said, "I showed my mom your painting of the girl on fire. She said it looked like me." I smiled. That's because it's all of us. That night, I sat by the fire pit, Gabriella's head on my shoulder, and thought about everything I had lost. The family dinners, the easy conversations, the comfort of knowing you belong. But then I thought about what I'd gained. A chosen family, a purpose, a life built not on approval, but on truth. And I realized I didn't lose my family. I released them, because love that requires you to shrink is not love. Then something unexpected happened. A letter.
From my father.
Handwritten. Folded carefully. No envelope. Just left at the gate. "Luciana, you've become everything I didn't know how to be. I watched you own that house that day, and all I could think was, she did it without us."
And
"I'm proud of you, even when I didn't act like it. Especially then." I read it twice, then 3 times, and I didn't cry. Not because it didn't matter, but because the healing had already begun before he said the words. This letter, it was confirmation, not the foundation. I took a photo of the letter, framed it, hung it in the guest house studio, right next to Abuela's letter. 2 generations of silence breaking, 1 word at a time. And I kept painting. Not for them. For every daughter still waiting to be seen. For every artist who was told they were too much. For every woman who had to own the house before her family looked her in the eye. Because this was my life now. And I didn't just survive it. I made it art. The house had grown into me like a second skin. Every creaking step held stories now, not just mine, but of the women who came through it after the reunion. Students, mothers, artists, survivors. We turned the vineyard's old tasting room into a community gallery, and every month, new work filled the walls. Stories painted in color, stitched in cloth, carved in silence. But no matter how much beauty filled the rooms, there was one shadow I couldn't shake. The guest bedroom at the top of the stairs, the one with the rose wallpaper and a cracked corner window, used to be mine. When I was 7, I painted little stars on the ceiling with glow-in-the-dark paint. At 13, I taped up pictures of artists my parents said were too strange, too political. At 16, I cried myself to sleep in that room after my mother found my sketchbook and said, "Do you really want the world to see you like this?" They never understood that art wasn't about being seen. It was about not disappearing. That room sat untouched now, not out of fear, but reverence. Until one day, I opened the door and decided to reclaim it. I pulled down the old curtains, repainted the cracked walls, hung a print of Inheritance above the bed. And when it was done, I sat on the floor and whispered, This space is mine again. Later that week, Anna called me again. You might want to prepare yourself, she said. They're coming. Who's they? Your parents. I think they want to see the house again. I didn't answer immediately, not because I was angry, but because I was finally in a place where their arrival wasn't necessary for my closure. Still, something in me said, let them come. Let them walk the halls of the legacy they never nurtured. They arrived on a Saturday afternoon. My father in a press shirt, holding a bottle of wine like a peace offering. My mother in a beige sweater set, sunglasses pushed up on her head, trying to smile, but not quite reaching her eyes. Gabriella answered the door. They looked surprised to see her. Not because they didn't know who she was, but because she was still here, still beside me, still proof that I wasn't apologizing for who I loved. I stepped into the entryway, calm and composed. Would you like a tour? I asked. They nodded. We moved through the house slowly, room by room. My father paused at the library I'd filled with Latin American literature and zines by queer artists. My mother touched the lace-trimmed edge of a canvas I had woven with names of forgotten ancestors. They said very little, but I saw it on their faces. They weren't just visiting a house. They were walking through the life I built without them. At the sunroom, my mother finally spoke. This was your abuela's favorite view, she said quietly. I nodded. She used to sit right there with yerba mate and hum to herself. She smiled, but it faded quickly. I didn't know you remembered. I remember everything, I said. Even the things I wish I could forget. She looked at me. I don't know how to make up for what we did, she said. Then don't try, I said. Just don't repeat it. My father joined us then. I want to ask you something, he said. And I mean it with respect. I braced myself. Would you ever consider coming back? Back to what? I asked. To the family. Holidays. Dinners. Being part of us again. I looked at both of them. I never left, I said. You just stopped looking. A silence hung in the air. Not sharp. Not cruel. Just honest. I don't need you to approve of me, I continued. I'm not here to be forgiven or reabsorbed. This, I gestured around the house. This is my life.
Not a rebellion.
Not a performance. A life. They didn't argue. Didn't cry. Didn't try to win me back with theatrics. They just stood there.
Small.
Quiet. Maybe finally seeing their daughter for the first time. Not the artist. Not the disappointment. Not the girl they couldn't control.
Just me.
Luciana. We had tea in the courtyard. It wasn't a perfect reunion. There were still gaps. Still bruises. Still things unsaid. But for once, I didn't feel like I had to chase love that wouldn't meet me halfway. I was centered. Rooted.
Whole.
After they left, Gabriella came and sat beside me on the porch swing. You okay? I nodded. They saw the house, I said. But more importantly, they saw me. That night, I lit a candle in the upstairs bedroom, Abuela's room, and I whispered. I kept the house warm.
Just like you asked.
The next morning, an envelope appeared under my door. Inside was a check. No note. No explanation. I flipped it over.
It wasn't a bribe.
It was a donation.
To the community gallery.
Signed, in honor of Luciana's vision. For the first time, I didn't feel bought. I felt backed. Because sometimes the truest transformation isn't loud. It's when silence becomes acknowledgement. When withholding becomes offering. When absence becomes presence. And in that quiet shift, I realized the house they tried to forget was always mine to reclaim. There's a power in choosing who sits at your table. I used to beg for a seat at theirs, shrinking myself, sanding down my edges, making space for people who refused to hold space for me. But something changed after they walked through the house. After they left that quiet donation and returned to their lives, I realized I didn't need to be welcomed back into their world, because I had built my own. That month, the gallery hosted an exhibit titled Inheritance. Not just the painting, but the idea. What do we inherit, beyond land or names or money? What wounds? What silences? What courage? We featured pieces from undocumented teens, from single mothers who hadn't painted since high school, from abuelas who stitched stories into fabric. And the night it opened, I stood by the arched doorway in a blue linen dress, watching strangers cry in front of the stories we'd all been taught to keep quiet. That's when I realized, legacy isn't what's written in wills. It's what lives in the unwritten. The things we dare to say. The lives we create when no one gave us a blueprint. The houses we fill with color and truth after years of beige silence. Gabriella squeezed my hand. You see this, she whispered. This is what healing looks like. I smiled. It's louder than I thought it would be. She kissed my temple. Healing always is. My parents didn't come to the exhibit, but they sent flowers and a small card. Your art is brave and beautiful, and so are you, M and D. I didn't cry. I didn't rush to call them. I placed the card next to Abuela's letter. One more offering on the altar of becoming. Later that summer, I received an invitation. Another family reunion. Same cursive font. Same group chat link. But this time, a handwritten note on the back. We hope you'll come, Luciana. You don't have to change. You never did.
Anna. I sat with it for a long time.
Because it wasn't about forgiveness anymore. It wasn't about proving myself. It was about choosing with intention where I poured my energy, where I showed up,
Who got access to me?
So I didn't RSVP yes, but I didn't say no either. I mailed back a single print, a copy of my painting, The Girl on Fire. On the back, I wrote, if you still think I'm the shame of this family, that's okay. Just know the world doesn't agree. I spent that reunion weekend painting with 10 immigrant daughters in the backyard. We laughed. We cried. We ate mangoes with tagine and painted until the stars came out. One of them, Isabella, age 9, turned to me and said, when I grow up, I want to live in a house like this. I looked around, at the vines, the laughter, the color, the history, and I said, you will. Maybe not this one. Maybe not in stone. But you'll build one in your spirit, and no one will be able to take it away. She nodded, and then went back to painting a giant pink moon. In the end, the greatest revenge isn't in the clapbacks. It's in the becoming. The softness you refuse to give up. The truth you refuse to bury. The life you build so vividly that even those who tried to silence you are left speechless. My name is Luciana Reyes. Once the shame of my family, now the author of my own story. And this house, it doesn't just hold my art. It holds every part of me they tried to forget.